40.
39.
Number 1.
39.
38.
37.
36.
35.
34.
33.
32.
31.
30. 29.
28.
27.
26.
25.
24.
23.
21.
20.
19.
18.
17. 16.
15.
14.
13.
12.
11. 10.
9. 8.
7. 6.
5.
4.
3.5.
3.
2.
1.
Hey, Rocky, you want to see me pull a show out of my hat? Nothing up my sleeve. Presto!
All right, indeed, an independent can survive, just like a country boy can survive. Hey, this is John Schmitz for the Mouthwash Talk Show, a minty, fresh take on politics, and we're glad to have you on tonight. Hey, we have a man after my own heart here tonight. He is actually running as an independent, and yes, he got the signatures. He's on the ballot. He's all that good stuff, and his name is Robby Slaughter. He's going to be running for U.S. Congress, District number 5, which, if you're familiar with that, it's like Carmel, Fishers, all the way up into wherever else. It's a big deal. It used to be in Indianapolis. Now it's all strictly out of Indianapolis in Hamilton County and different areas. He is going to have fun in there because I think there's a Democrat, Republican, and an independent, and probably even a libertarian. So that's an interesting race coming up. So, hey, I just want to say thanks for joining us. Hopefully you caught the Say It Out Loud show. I actually broadcast that one on Mouthwash and some other outlets because Cassie Jackson, she's sort of banned from Facebook for a while. I don't know why. She never gives anybody a hard time and always says appropriate things, right? So anyway, I hope you caught that show. It was pretty interesting. We called it spirituality or religion or spirituality or something. So, they say don't talk about religion or politics. Well, that show, we talk about all of it. So it's all good. And then to catch our stock market neophytes show this Friday live at noon with my friend Gary Slim Trader. So, but tonight we have our guest tonight, and we have a replacement for Brad. And I was going to say, I'm already going to say she seems nicer than Brad, but Brad's a pretty nice guy anyway. So that's a bar highly set for him. But she is going to fill in for a couple weeks because Brad's off watching baseball games and going to Fish concerts and different things. So we're going to get to know her a little bit today. And so let's get to it. I'm going to go ahead and play small talk. I'm going to play small talk. I haven't watched it. So we're all going to look at it for new. And then we'll have Robby on the other side and we'll get to know him a little bit, bring the panel on and grill, baby.
Hi, I'm Mark Small. This is Small Talk. We're coming down to the stretch on our election for 2024. I'm not on here just to normalize the far right. I'm here to make you people feel irritated about things because guess what? We're looking at possibly having a dictatorship. Now, Trump has made statements before, but like last Friday saying, my good Christians, you're not going to have to worry about voting after this election. Isn't that reassuring? Of course, the day before he had said something he'd said repeatedly, you don't have to worry about voting this election at all. The implication being that there are so many people in favor of Trump in key positions on elections that they'll just go ahead and stop ballot boxes. Make no mistake, he lost the election in 2020 by 8 million. And 2016, he lost by 3.5 million in the popular vote. But we have this vestige of slavery in the Constitution called the electors, not the Electoral College, that is a mechanism by which Republicans find their way into office. Now, he had 4 years before. Why wasn't he a dictator then? Well, he sure did a lot of groundwork for it because he hadn't expected being in office. And because now he's got 3 more whores on the Supreme Court who've even said he can do things with immunity and not be punished by law. And those things aren't even found in the Constitution. And if we look at how people are trying to do things overall in all our culture, I have books on my bookcase back here about the Nazis and how what they did was they tried to teach people to have National Socialism in every level of their society. We have Micah Beckwith saying he's going to go into classrooms and make sure that history is taught the way it should be in every classroom. In other words, Micah Beckwith wants to dumb down this state's kids to the point they're so stupid they'll believe his version of history, which isn't really history. So I'm not on here to normalize you guys. I'm in here to make you guys feel peeved about it. Peace.
Well, I think he said that. I got so interested, I forgot to add Robby to the stage here. So yeah, well, we joked about Mark including Micah Beckwith for 5 straight weeks in his ranting and raving, and he forgot to last week. So we said, hey, he's got to start a new string, and he didn't let us down on that. So you're probably familiar for Micah Beckwith. He's one of your constituents. Is that correct?
I am familiar with Micah. Yeah, I actually met him several times.
Yeah. So, Robby, I'm pretty sure a lot of people may not have heard of you before. So give us your elevator introduction.
Yeah, I'm Robby Slaughter. I'm running for the U.S. Congress up here in the 5th District, which, as you alluded to, is all of Hamilton County, as well as Tipton, Howard, Delaware, Madison, and Grant counties. So it goes from Carmel, Noblesville, Fishers, all the way up to Kokomo and Greentown, out to Marion, over to Muncie and Anderson, down to Pendleton, and back again. It covers a large area, and I'm here as the independent candidate. So not with any major or minor party, truly independent to represent the people need, which is an honest person.
Yeah, so you're definitely a people over party guy because you got no party. Although the independent party is sort of, it's out there, it's just not real organized. But
well, it's not a party. When you declare yourself as an independent, what you mean is that you are separate from any other organization. And so there are people who have also identified as independents, but we're not in any way. We're not coordinating. We don't have the same set of beliefs or platforms. Independent means exactly that, independent, without connection to any organization or party.
Yep. So I saw you up at the Carmel outdoor concert thing, and you were up there diligently getting signatures. And I know you had you were close, but you didn't have it done. So how many signatures did you end up getting? How many were you required to get?
I got over 6,000 signatures throughout the course of the year. And this cycle in my district, I had to get 4,775 certified signatures. Those are people who actually live in the district, who are registered voters, whose handwriting is legible, and who the various election offices don't otherwise reject.
Yeah, that's well, and that, believe it or not, that is about how many you would have to get to run as an independent for mayor of Indianapolis this last cycle, was around that. And when I tried it, it was 6,100, but we've lost that many voters. So for the viewers that don't know, the way this is calculated is it's 2% of the vote that the Secretary of State got during that in that district, which makes a lot of sense because you're not running for Secretary of State, right?
Yes, it's just
that's exactly
system that's designed to keep independents and other third parties off the ballot.
Yeah, you can thank Ross Perot for that. I think Indiana might be second behind Mississippi. I mean, Mississippi is like, as hard as it is to spell Mississippi, is to get on the ballot down there. So, all right. Well, and what is your, I'll do the first question before we bring on the people. I see we got our lovelies backstage here that we're getting ready to bring on. What would be your 3 top things?
I think the number one issue we face in this country, bigger than foreign policy, bigger than education, bigger than the economy, is we have a crisis of trust. We don't trust our elected officials anymore. We barely trust anyone in any position of authority or expertise, much less our own neighbor. Without trust, nothing is possible. Trust is the fundamental need that we have to address. And go ahead.
I was going to say, once you lose trust, it's an uphill battle. I mean, anybody that's been in a relationship, once you lose that trust, good luck, especially on the female side.
And our government has lost the trust of the electorate, right? We don't vote for people because we trust them. We vote for people because we're afraid the other person is even worse.
Yes, that is correct. All right,
and,
number 2.
That's number 1. Number 2, as a result of that, is that we have to have term limits. Term limits is the only way that we can demonstrate to the electorate that we are there to do the job and go home, and not to become career politicians. And of course, term limits is a good example of a terrible idea where not doing it is even worse. I mean, can you imagine term limits for your doctor or your mechanic or a teacher? We want people to get good at their jobs. But when it comes to politicians, we want to ensure that the people who are doing this work are there to serve their term and then go home. So we absolutely have to have that. It's a way to show that we're there to do the job.
Yep. And number 3.
And number 3 is to address the financial transparency and malfeasance that's happening in our government, especially in Congress. Members of Congress go into the office and they become millionaires through all kinds of techniques, which either should be illegal or effectively are illegal, whether it's trading stock with insider information, whether it's gaining material wealth through lobbyist groups and other kinds of third-party organizations, or other kinds of access to influence that are totally inappropriate. You should not go into Congress and become a multimillionaire. You should leave and not even have the opportunity to make much money, because it should be about public service, not about individual enriching your own wealth.
Wow, they're going to love you out there. They're going to love you out there. So, but hey, it doesn't matter what they love you out there. It's the voters. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring on our panel. Let's see. Let's go ahead. Let's bring on our guest. We're going to bring on Claudia. And hold on, I got to go to the other thing here. So there we go. Claudia, how are you this evening?
Hello, guys. How are you?
I'm great. Hey, Claudia, real quick, tell our viewers a little bit about yourself and all that.
Sure. So Claudia Edwards, I am a resident of Richmond, Indiana. I ran for city council at large last year with another group of good candidates. We had a great experience running. We tried to bring better representation in the community, and me being of a diverse background, I was hoping that we could have that much needed diversity representing the community here in Richmond. I was not elected, but I'm not, I think it was a great experience for me. I had been working for several years already in the community, and I already knew the majority of the people. And so it came very natural to me to try to represent our voters here.
Okay, I detect a little accent there. Where are you originally from? Somewhere else, maybe?
Yes, so I was born in Peru, South America. I went to high school there, and I did a year of college. So then I moved to the U.S. 25 years ago now, and went to school here. I graduated from IU, and but I lived in the East Coast before I moved to Indiana, and I have been in Indiana for about 18 years or so.
All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Lucy. Lucy's only going to be by sound. Oh.
That is correct. I'm the disembodied voice of reason today.
Yeah, so she'll be like, Mark Small thinks that God is a female, so we'll just say God's voice is Lucy Brent tonight. So she, measure.
Can you convince my teenagers of that? That would be super helpful.
Well, you have to put them on the line. I'll do what I can. I joke around about raising 4 millennials, but really they raised me. So I don't know if I'd be a lot of help with that. But so now we have Tiffany. I see Tiffany. Did you have popcorn out? Did I see you eat? Yeah. So and Claudia, this is my life. This is the regulars on here. It's like
very nice. It's
like herding cats chasing butterflies on the back of turtles sometimes, but we get it done. So, Tiffany, how are you tonight?
I'm doing fantastic. Tonight's the last night for the Fishers concert. So we were out there. The Republican Party was giving out ices tonight. So that was fun.
Yeah, I saw that. It's like, and the weather is perfect for that if the ices don't melt fast enough and drip down your arm. Like, when those kids get an ice cream cone and it just drips off their elbow. It probably was the same thing ices were doing. So, Tiffany, Robby, this is one of your constituents here.
Right.
Tiffany is, and I don't know, Claudia, are you as well?
Richmond.
Okay, so
no,
you
Wayne
have.
County is right.
Who do you have? You have Aaron Houchin? No, Pence. I think Greg Pence. Okay, yeah, and Shreve is running to replace him because he's stepping out.
Yes.
So, and then we probably have who's the Democrat running out there? If you don't know, I put Claudia on the spot on her first time on the show.
Sorry, I lost you.
Oh, she's good. She's looking it up. That's what she's doing. She's looking it up. So yeah. So we got Robby here. He's one of your constituents, Tiffany. So you can add summer shanties. It is that time of year. So we're gonna have to get Claudia back. We lost her, but she did good to start out on the show. So that's good. All right. Well, hey, it looks like we have Lucy and Tiffany right here. So Tiffany, since you're a constituent, for the U.S. House questions, and you've been out to D.C. and you've been all over the place. What question might you have for future Congressman Slaughter?
So I applaud you running as an independent. I know that it's difficult and it's an uphill battle. So my hat's off to you, and I appreciate your effort. So what does success look like with your campaign?
I think success looks like it for any campaign. That's victory in November. And success is about gaining the interest and the excitement of voters and building a groundswell towards more and more votes to win the election.
So you're running against a Republican incumbent.
That's right.
You just came through a highly contested primary. How many votes do you need to beat her? But are you equipped and well resourced to beat her in terms of manpower, door knocking, and money for messaging?
Yeah, I think so. And I think it's also important to note that most of the traditional strategy that's used in campaigns for party candidates is really about activating the base on either side. And the majority of people who vote do not want to vote for a party candidate. They only feel they have to because there is no option. In our district, no one has run as an independent since 2010, and most independents don't have any resources. They aren't devoted to the campaign. They're merely running because they want to run for something, or they're in an environment in which it isn't difficult to sign up. But I had to spend a year gaining over 6,000 signatures to get on the ballot. It's very challenging in Indiana, and I've created a lot of groundswell and a lot of interest in the campaign through that process.
Have you done any polling?
I've not done any external polling yet, but we have done some polling by reviewing some data based on expressed interest in independents. And we know that nationwide, and this is matched in Indiana, over 44% of individuals identify as an independent and would prefer to vote for one in a campaign.
How does straight ticket voting affect you running as an independent?
Well, straight ticket voting is probably unconstitutional, but we are one of 7 states that has that thing. And that probably is the biggest challenge that I faced, is convincing people not to press the button for all Republican or all Democrat. Most people don't know who they're voting for. They can't name anybody in elected office. All they know is that their party has taught them to be more afraid of the other party. And so they tend to pull that lever in states like Indiana where that's an available option. And that's the biggest challenge we face as a campaign, I think, is educating individuals that they have to go through and pick the candidates that they want and not merely pull a lever that says R or D.
Yeah,
So
I was going to say, yeah, easy, Tiffany. She'll just keep rolling them off.
Absolutely. That's why I'm here.
Whenever we talk to candidates, I'm always big about, how much money have you raised? Are you actively raising money? Are you well resourced? And how you're going to get your message out there? Because I feel like it's always great to run, and there are reasons why people do what they want to do. But if you're not running a realistic campaign with a chance at winning, then that goes back to my first question: what does success look like? Because I don't want to be Debbie Downer. I mean, your chances of winning are probably less than the incumbents. And so my question about what does success look like when this is over, and if you don't win, how will you measure success?
I mean, I think every day that I get to work on this opportunity and talk to voters is a successful day. And I hear stories from people every day, how they don't feel represented, how their government has let them down, and how they have a total lack of trust in their elected officials, especially at the federal level. And the opportunity to have those conversations is success day over day in itself. But I also think that so much of our traditional wisdom about campaigns is broken because it's based on party assumptions. You mentioned the primary earlier, Tiffany. We had a primary where a candidate spent $4 million to lose. And that really illustrates how much we waste money in campaigns and don't really move the needle very much. In fact, most people report that they don't find that campaign signs and campaign advertisements educate them as voters. They don't like them. They want to turn them off. They don't want them in their neighborhoods. And yet that's the majority of our budget. So I think a lot of the traditional wisdom about campaigns doesn't apply when you have people who aren't part of the party system.
So if it doesn't apply, and if you're doing non-traditional things, if you don't win, then what have you proven?
Well, I mean, there may be other techniques to try. The nature of experiment is that you may need to try several things and several approaches. But certainly, the fact of the matter is I will get a significant amount of the vote simply because I'm not an R or a D. We know from other independent campaigns that many people vote aye merely as a protest vote. But look at the Libertarian candidate for governor, Rainwater, who ran last time and running again this time. He'll probably make a significant dent without much of a campaign effort, merely because the electorate is tired of the party system.
Yeah, but he's got some name recognition. So what, top of your ticket is what, Robert Kennedy?
He's not part of my ticket. We are not affiliated in any way.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that'll keep people off the straight ticket at some point. So I want to get to Claudia here, because she's sitting here like me watching the interview here. But I want to put one up for our audience. This Spiro Aracliano, she asks, how can we restore trust, Robby?
That's a great question. So I think the first thing to do to restore trust is to actually spend time in communities. And most candidates, especially candidates for federal office, don't spend much time with the electorate. They spend most of their time fundraising and working with consultants. They literally dial for dollars. In fact, the average member of Congress after getting elected spends half to 2/3 of their working hours in fundraisers, either going to call centers to call donors or going to fundraising events. And so the majority of effort that most candidates make is not actually with voters, spending time with them, learning about them. So I think that's the first thing to do, is to spend time in community. And I've already got great recognition. I can barely go somewhere in the district and not see somebody. Tiffany, I see you everywhere, and you know that I'm all around. And so that is a huge element. I almost never see any other candidate running for office at all the places that I go, whether they're farmers markets, whether it's community events, whether it's business openings, whether it's the soccer fields. I go all kinds of places, and I almost never see other candidates.
Yeah.
But I think the second thing we need to do to restore trust, and I think the caller recognizes as well, is we have to give up power. Our Congress has too much power, especially individual members of Congress. And that comes through things like term limits. It also comes through eliminating all the mechanisms that Congress has to enrich themselves. Do you know we have a system right now where if you are a member of Congress, you can spend money on expenses like meals or places to stay, and you don't even have to turn in your receipt. You just say the amount it was, and you get reimbursed for whatever the amount was. That's the current mechanism in our U.S. Congress for expenses. And our current member of Congress in our district, and in fact, every member of Congress from Indiana, has taken full advantage of that to the tune of several $1 million in total over the course of the year. That's the kind of power we have to curtail. We reduce that power. It shows the electorate it's about doing the job and not about enriching ourselves as elected officials.
Yeah, and for the record, it would be Jim Baird would have taken advantage of that for the most, and Rudy Yocum would be the least. So, and then the rest of them fill in the blanks.
That's correct.
I try to pay attention. And Robby, I like what you're saying, because that's what I find too. So I was door knocking this weekend, and I asked a person, I said, when's the last time you had a U.S. congressman on your doorstep? And I had not one person say that. So
that's right.
That is what is very interesting. But you got to get a lot of votes, and we have such big areas. I have about the same amount of people. You got like 600 or 700,000 people that you have to deal with. That's a big number if you're going to send them each one text messages. That's a lot of money just for doing one, right? So yeah, it's a definitely a tricky thing. So Claudia, I think I remember you were on this show. I'm not sure if
No, and I was.
Did we take all the good questions?
Sure. No. I was waiting for, I didn't want to interrupt. But Robby, I had a question. While you're talking about, politicians or candidates needing to be out in the community and needing to have that face-to-face time with potential voters or constituents, what are some of the ways that you're getting out there? What are some of the things that you're doing to connect with the community now that, for those viewers that maybe don't know or haven't seen you yet?
Well, first of all, Claudia, I want to say, if you don't want to interrupt, you might be on the wrong show. Because in my experience with watching Mouthwash, it's all about the interruption.
Hey, now, I think you're talking about me, Robby. I'm taking
God has spoken.
But to answer the question directly, I can't tell you where I haven't been. I mean, this last week, I was at a back-to-school event up in Elwood. I was over at a fundraiser for a woman who has cancer, and who's raising money for her. I've been to the Blessing of the Bikes, which is up in Kokomo at the Harley Davidson dealership. I've been to, I think, almost every town council meeting in the district I have been to. I go to BZA meetings. I go to just about any possible event that's going on. So if you have an HOA meeting, if your business is having a company picnic for the summer, there's a good chance that I'm trying to show up there, and there's a good chance I'm getting kicked out, because this is what I do, is I go everywhere I can go.
Good. That's very important to be out there and be listening to our constituents. But so going back to educating the voters, last year, while I was running for city council at large here in Richmond, I learned that that was a huge roadblock for the candidates here. And I think it's, the same statewide and nationwide. So what is your strategy to educate the voters in your area?
Well, I'm going to say something really unpopular here, but I think is actually true, which is that for any other field, whether the field is medicine or auto repair or lawn care or anything else, chances are you are not an expert in that field. And what you do is you trust the person who is working on that for you to do a good job. And sure, you know some of the basics, but you don't have to know all of the details. And yet for politics, we have suddenly come to this answer that we think the populace needs to be educated on many intricate details by how our government works. And that, I don't think that's true. And I think what people are really yearning for is the same thing they're yearning for any other important professional role, that the people who are doing it are trustworthy. They can be trusted, that they're accessible, that they're accountable, that they do what's right, and they're transparent in that work. And so I don't think it's so much about educating the populace that there are 435 members of Congress and 3 houses of government, and the nature of what's going on and what specific bills are being passed.
Right, but I think that my point on educating the populace is not so much on the way that the process in which the Congress or the federal not on that end stands, but educating them on what your goals are, your platform, like what is it, how are you trying to reach to them to get their vote? What is it that you're doing to educate them on your background and the things that you're wanting to change?
I'm doing shows like Mouthwash, right? I'm active in the community. I'm doing radio events. I have other media coming up. I'm signed up we got a forum coming up in Anderson. League of Women Voters is organizing for all of the candidates. We're doing public events to talk about what's going on in the community. And I think it's really about being in front of people and being available to them. My phone number is on my website, and people call me almost every day to ask me questions, which I think is what it is about.
I think.
We're raising hands now. Go ahead, Tiffany.
How many
John,
votes
we can
do you
hear
need
you.
to win?
Say again?
How many votes do you need to win?
So it depends on a lot of factors, right? But probably somewhere around 250,000 votes to win. It depends on the question too about what the participation rate will be and how it'll be split between the 4 candidates. So as we approach November, we'll learn a lot more about what's going to be going on in terms of the electoral process. But yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at. Go ahead.
Going back to Claudia's question, will you be able to touch 250,000 people?
And I can't shake hands with all of them, but we're able to reach everybody through media. And that's, I think, the big opportunity. This is a news story. We haven't had anyone run as an independent in this district since 2010. We haven't had any candidate who's not part of the party system. People are tired of partisan politics, as statistics show, and the media is interested to tell that story.
And so you want to reach them through free media?
Well, free media is a key way, right? And I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned. I see you have a Trump Vance sign behind you, and Trump's 2016 election and his 2020 election is a good evidence of the power of free media. Trump got far more press through free media than ever through paid media. And I think, again, people want to see that you are being talked about by the press. They want to see that you're engaged in the community. They don't want to see that you've raised a bunch of money. And every time I show someone the federal fundraising for any federal candidate, they're disgusted by it. They see that most of the money doesn't come from people who even live in the district. It comes from people outside the district and special interest groups. Most of it is not even about what's happening in our community.
All right, so hold on, Tiffany. Hold on, stop. I got we got Lucy here. Lucy's going to come on here, but first of all, Doran's going to get a question in here, and this is for you, Robby. Do you have any specific issues and platforms somewhere? Do you have a website and whatnot?
Absolutely. My website is robbyslaughter.com, and I'd point out that I have more information on my website than all of the other candidates do combined. In fact, more than I've seen any other candidate provide. I have an extensive issue section. I've got dozens of videos and blog posts. There's quite a bit more there than you would normally see on a campaign platform. I think that's important because I'm not a party candidate. So you can't just lean on whatever the party says. You have to actually go and look at what I have to say if you want my important issue on things. But the most important point of view I have is that I'm open-minded. I'm willing to be wrong. If you have better information than I do, if you have facts that I haven't considered, if you have evidence I need to review, then I'm willing to change my mind on something. But I need to have that data to be able to do it.
Yeah, looks like we lost Claudia again. That Richmond is a tough place to be. It seems. Oh, there she is. She's back.
Sorry about that.
Did you get a phone call? Sometimes if you get a phone call, it'll get you if you're on your phone.
I'm not sure what's going on, but I apologize.
Oh, you're good. It's just fun to. Now, Lucy, speaking of taxation as theft, Lucy, are you there, Lucy?
Yes, I'm here. And Robby, I've got to tell you, I'm super pleased at what I'm hearing. I'm really curious about how you would protect our citizens economically. Would you be willing to work to end the Fed and to return constitutional money?
Well, so it's a common statement that we should consider ending the Fed, but I don't know that we have any mainstream economist that supports the idea that a modern economy can exist without some kind of central bank. And I think the question too would be, what is the econometric model that supports an economy which doesn't have a central bank? And if you can show me that, if you can show me a fleet of mainstream economists that support the idea, and they have econometric analyses that have done simulations without a Federal Reserve, I'd be happy to look at it. But I have never come across any mainstream economist that supports that idea. So I'd love to see it. But in terms of,
I don't mean to interrupt you, but I have an accused of that. When we talk about, the Federal Reserve System, we've got to recognize that it's only been around since 1913. So we're just now at the point where we've had the Federal Reserve, for an equal amount of time that the country's been here, 1776 to 1913, 1913 till today.
Yes.
I think we can look at the value of the American dollar relationship before 1913, after 1913, industrial rate growth versus today's growth in real spending power. And I think it's extremely stupid easy to demonstrate that the spending power of the dollar back in 1912 versus 1913 to today is about 1%. In other words,
if the economy of 2024 looked anything like the economy of 1913, you might have a point, but our economies are fundamentally structurally different. In 1913, you had less than 20% of the populace had any kind of market participation, whereas now it's almost 2/3 of us have market participation. Most people working in 1913, I think that we were still a majority agrarian economy then. Now less than 5% of people work in the agrarian sector. We have an information economy which didn't exist anymore. And of course, we are internationally linked in a way that did not exist in 1913. So the structure of the money supply, the way that our economy operates is so fundamentally different in 1913 than it was in 2024. Heck, it's different than it was 30 years ago. And so I think it's very difficult to make that comparison because the economy has changed more in the last 100 years than it did in the previous 1,000 years. So making
it's easy to say that. It is so super easy to say that, but the fact of the matter is back in the time of Caesar, with 1 ounce of gold, you could buy 2,000 loaves of bread. With 1 ounce of gold, you can buy about 2,000 loaves of bread today. The buying power of the money related to the labor that it takes to extract that gold and to hold it and then to exchange it for goods and services is relatively the same. Now,
yes, but in the time of Caesar, 20% of the population, or 10% of the population was enslaved. In the time of Caesar, the life expectancy was 1/3 what it is today. In the time of Caesar, we had no medicine, no populace. The bread that we buy today.
That's all.
Yeah, I mean,
true.
it's
the bread that we buy today
these...
isn't even bread. It's polysorbate 80 and dough conditioner.
I'm still doing the bread math myself.
Because of innovation, right? I mean, it's
that's not innovation. That's not innovation. That is one marketplace keeping another marketplace
sick. It's an innovative word. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Right. And you didn't have that.
Actually, that's not true. That's not true. If you don't like it, you don't have to buy it. Because I love raw milk, but there are states that would put me in jail for the crime of selling raw milk.
We're not talking about milk. We're talking about bread. You can make
bread
your
is
own
the
bread.
same. They're both commodities.
Well, if we have a big snowstorm, it's bread and milk.
Exactly.
Hey, don't forget eggs. I got to make French toast in the middle of a snowstorm.
And you also can drink raw milk. You just can't sell it in the state of Indiana. So you can't consume it on your own.
Who in the world would try and restrict that commerce? I mean,
well,
the milk market.
Yeah, and again, these are all the kinds of details that need to be analyzed and reviewed and discussed.
They
and
have
I'm
been
more than happy
analyzed
to
and
look at the
reviewed,
studies.
and that's why the FDA is showing up, and why right now in Pennsylvania they're trying to put an Amish farmer in jail. In Michigan, just a couple of weeks ago, we had the Michigan, Public Health Department throw $90,000 of raw cheese into a dumpster.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to put this.
How much of the meat was thrown out during the mad cow scare? So I think the interesting question is that when are these situations?
There was no mad cow,
when is
by
this
the way,
public
people.
health?
That was
and
all.
when is it conspiracy? Right? When is it a question of trying to make good decisions based on science? And when is it a situation in which somebody is just trying to get rich? And the answer to all of those questions is more transparency. More transparency will provide us the opportunity to analyze these issues in detail and to try to understand the best way forward. If we can sit here all day and make arguments based on what sounds easy, but the people who have spent their entire lives studying them are supported in a way that can provide transparent evidence and information which is unbiased as much as best as it can be, then we're not going to make good decisions. Otherwise, we're just trading theories, and the theories are not very helpful.
Well, the problem is that you're calling and making the qualification of a mainstream economist, when the fact is that Austrian economics and Keynesian economics, which you might call mainstream, is actually diametrically opposed. I'm an Austrian economist, and I have struggled
I understand, right? And sometimes things which are unpopular come back decades later and become popular again, right? And
it's not about popularity, it's about the facts of an enslaved population. You talk about 10% being enslaved in Caesar. Anybody that has a job in this country is an economic slave.
Well, in that sense, everyone was enslaved in the time of Caesar as well, right? Because everybody.
Then ask yourself why that question. Why have we not taken arms up against our oppressors? We did in 1776, or more than 200 years later. We are getting more stolen from our labor every single day.
Didn't they just get Biden like they got Caesar, but he's still alive type of thing? I mean, just say. But hey, we got a really important viewer question here. John Gilman. I don't know who John Gilman is, but he wants to know if that's a Chanel necklace, Claudia. I mean, these are the hard-hitting questions that we get on this show.
Yeah.
That reminds me of an issue that arose in Peru with the president and her Rolex watch. So I'm not feeling great about the question. It was a gift from my mother for my 40th birthday.
Oh.
Thank you for
how do you feel now, John Gilman, asking a question about her gift from her mother? I hope you
very nice.
Come up with a better.
That's the thing, is that we always hold men and women political candidates to different standards.
Yeah, nobody's talking about my beautiful T-shirt tonight.
But Robby, somebody did say that they really like the curtains behind you.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I like that tile backsplash too. Subway tile.
We're on. And what is your feelings about tile backsplashes? I mean, should that be a federal law that everyone should have a tile backsplash? I mean, it's like a chicken in every pot. How about your slang could be
only if I'm a tile setter? If I'm a tile setter, I want that law.
John, sorry.
Yeah. I wonder if Caesar had a tile backsplash. I just, these things and I'm still trying to do the bread math from 2000 from Caesar time and all that. I'm thinking that Lucy, I think a bread is at least like $3 a thing now. So if you do the math,
I'm an Aldi shopper, so I get bread for $1.
I don't want to hear about your communist shopping habits. So
those darn Germans.
Yeah, I'm Austrian, by the way. I don't know what economist you're talking about because I don't even know how much bread costs.
Start with economics in one lesson by Henry Hazlitt, and then move on to The Road to Serfdom by F.A. Hayek. And then go to
Hayek, and I've read Soul, and again, there are lots of economists who are out to make money by having contrarian views, and good for them. And having mainstream views makes you money too. So the thing is that we could sit here all day and argue by picking out little points, but we have to go with some sense of process, right?
No, absolutely not. The process has been put in place by people that profit from it. Little hinges swing big doors, and it's those little hinges that swing big doors where you have the pivot point, not particularly as an independent, but where the red and blue have a monopoly on those pivot points. And so they control the rest of us to the point where when I was getting my second bachelor's in economics at IUPUI, I was the only Austrian economist. Like, kids that were majors had never even heard the word Austrian.
Sure. And there's not a lot of blood letters in medical school either, right? I mean, how terrible is that? That not a lot of blood letters in medical schools these days. The point is that if you have a point of view which is not popular because it is no longer one that is common, that doesn't necessarily mean that it is right. It might have.
No, it probably means that the education system was captured and nobody is learning about the things that actually work because it's not profitable for the elite cabal.
No, I don't know. The economy seems to be doing okay. More people have more money today than they did 50 years ago. But
more money does not equal more buying power. Our buying power is less in spite of having more dollars in our pockets because
we live in bigger houses. We drive more fuel-efficient cars.
But I want to go back to what Lucy said about people being slaves. She is so right. If you think about it, to participate in our American society, you have to have health care. So, and that's one of the reasons that people have to go to work. Like, you need it, your kids need it. I mean, like, we're on this hamster wheel, man, that you can If you don't play it right, you'll never get off of it. I think a lot of Americans really need to wake up and understand that, big houses, big cars, it just all makes you just like a pawn in the system. And the sooner that you can live on less and have less and find financial freedom, the happier you'll be as an American, because the American dream, somebody has to pay for it. And you end up paying for it every day of your life. And
we're not actually paying for it, because the money is created out of thin air, literally by checkbook entry. If you go read Modern Money Mechanics, which is still a free PDF by the Federal Reserve, they literally say that money is created by checkbook entry. There is no magical value that comes into the system to back up the pieces of paper that are printed. So the elite people, the congressional people that can literally give these subsidies to their buddies, they create this money out of thin air and spend it. And then only later do we as the individual people discover through the rising prices that the value of our money has been diluted. So most people don't understand the mechanism between how this money gets out to build that $50 million building and why your shoes are now $45 instead of $30.
Yeah, well, when they go get their groceries, they understand it, but they don't know why, because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, and inflation is a real problem.
And it really hurts the poor and the elderly. So if we end the
Federal Reserve and Congress goes back to its congressional mandate of coining money and regulating the value thereof, we might be able to hold them accountable. But of course, there is zero accountability because, as Robby said later, you don't have independence and people aren't willing to give up power.
Right.
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead, Tiffany.
Different topic. Same question. No, I'm just kidding. Different topic.
So it starts with.
I know. You're not a Republican. You're not a Democrat. You're a complete independent.
Yeah.
Talk me through your thoughts on our porous border and what type of solution you think is best.
Well, I think it's important to recognize the border problem is an issue that is 50 years in the making and has been created by both major parties. So we have an issue which is profound and dramatic, and it is truly the fault of both parties in government, in Congress, as well as both administrations of both Republican and Democratic stripes. So this is not a Republican or Democratic problem. This is a government problem that government has created by kicking the can down the road. And it's actually not just one problem. It's actually 5 separate problems. So with the border itself, we need to recognize that the border is porous because of the fact that we don't have the resources allocated to be able to control the border. Mm-hmm. We have only about 10,000 people who work in the Border Patrol, and that's about how many come across the border every single day, or at least try to cross the border. So we don't have nearly enough resources with our current ports of entry to stop them. We also have a legal mechanism that doesn't handle the situation correctly, because people have found a way to come in through asylum that allows them to be in the country and have access to American resources without proper vetting and analysis. And so we need to change those laws, implement them in a different way, with let people be vetted outside the country and not have access to the United States until we fully confirm that it makes sense to come through a visa process or pursue citizenship. And so the border itself needs massively more resources to be able to be addressed. We also need to use technology to address the border. We need drones that are able to look for folks that are trying to cross outside of border crossings. But also we need to recognize that the border is only emblematic of economic problems that have been created. We have somewhere between 12 and 15 million people who are in the United States illegally, most of whom did not come here by crossing the border unlawfully. They came here on valid visas, typically on airplanes, and just overstayed those visas. And they've stayed here, they've raised families, they've contributed to the economy in some ways, but they have done so underground. And that's created all kinds of problems because, again, we have an entire class of people who are working here unlawfully that are creating economic challenges for us, and that are issues in terms of us being able to manage our citizenship and manage our relationship with immigration process. And of course, the legal immigration process is totally broken as well. Claudia can probably speak to that personally through this.
I was waiting for that.
Due to be able to come into this country because
don't be stereotyping her.
Well, I happen to know, as you mentioned, she came from Peru earlier.
Okay.
So she knows a bit about the process, I'm sure.
So what do you know about that process, Robby?
So I think it's important to recognize that we have the same number of people are admitted from every country in the world. The same number of slots are allocated, regardless of the size of that country, regardless of the political situation.
And what do you know exactly about the process of becoming either a resident or a citizen of the U.S.?
It is incredibly complicated and time-consuming, and it varies dramatically based on where you're coming from and your status.
So what do you think about the cost? Is there a cost associated? Are you familiar with that?
Yes, there is a cost associated. Again, that cost varies quite a bit based on when you started. But for most people, it's in the $5,000 to $10,000 range. It sometimes is even more than that, and that's just with the fees that are associated with it directly. And oftentimes, it depends on what your family situation is, who you're connected to here, and those sorts of things. It's very expensive. And again,
I'd like to give.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to a YouTube channel called Nomad Capitalist, who's very libertarian and globalist in his views. He teaches people how to get out of the American system. So if you are unhappy with America and want to immigrate to another country, he has great analysis and help. You do need to be a person of means because it requires investment in some of those countries in order to immigrate there. But if you're not satisfied here, there are other places you can go.
Absolutely. And if you want to come to the United States and you want to invest here, I think $1 million is the current investment amount. That if you bring $1 million investment in the United States, then you can get in right away. So you
can stay at my house if you bring me $1 million. I mean,
so,
I got a place.
That shows the inequity in the process.
Wow, that stunned the audience right there. The $1 million thing. It was all that.
Yeah.
So Claudia, help us out here.
I'd love to hear your story, Claudia, if you want to share it, because I've heard different stories from many people who've come from different countries here, and countries in South America, countries in the Middle East, countries in Europe. I've heard lots of different stories. I'd love to hear yours.
Well, oftentimes, the number of years or the length of the process varies depending on based on each individual case.
Right.
And it can cost anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000, like it was in my case. And, it depends on whether you came with a visa, or it depends on whether, you cross the border. And the stereotypical idea is that, well, you're an immigrant and you're illegal, but you can still get benefits, which is a lie. It's not true. You cannot go and get benefits of any kind unless you're going to a food pantry and you're getting community resources.
Right.
The process is, again, lengthy, and it varies for different people. I know that I've had family members that have come to visit and were immediately turned around from the airport and thrown in a women's prison. And I'm talking about a young professional with a master's degree from a good stable family from another country, and simply because they thought it was suspicious, she was not let in the country. She'd been here several times before, and that last time she was put in a women's prison in Elizabeth, New Jersey. And if anybody is familiar with that prison, and if you're not, please Google it up. But when you're 30 years old and you're a woman and you don't have any experience like that, and you come from a professional family, or you're educated and you work all your life in your family, you have a doctor or whatever, and then you get treated that way, and you get thrown in a prison like a criminal for simply coming to visit, like you have done before. I think that there's something seriously wrong that needs to be addressed by the government in each state. So there are a lot of issues that we need to be looking at, and we need to be discussing.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would say that's not very welcoming. Okay, so I'm going to have a question for everyone on here. So if you were, so we have, we'll just say 15 million undocumented people here. What would be the amount of a fine? Because, they've broken the law, and, sometimes you could have a fine if someone breaks the law, like you have a speeding ticket or whatever. What amount would you put on that? Would it be 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, $1 million? So I'm going to ask each of you, what number would that be to put a fine on somebody to, let's say that's been here 3 years, or let's say 5 years. So it's 5 years. They haven't had any problems. What number would you put on that fine for them to have a pathway to citizenship? What would that? We'll start with you, Tiffany.
$1,000 a month from the day you got here.
Oh, okay. So if you were here for 20 years, $1 million. Okay. But, you got to put, it's a one-time pay. One-time pay.
So I think that it's like, is it a flat fee? I mean, it has to be based on something.
Yeah.
I would say, yeah. Oh, so say that. So that's what you're saying. So every year you were here, but then, so say that I would be lying about how would be able to document how long they were here? I would say, oh, I've only been here 1 year. I only owe $12,000, but they've been here 25.
It's like, well,
now, I don't think we're going to.
These your kids? How long you worked at this job? I think you can kind of figure some of this stuff out.
Yeah, but they're not going to tell you. I would say that if you know,
some of it is content. I mean, like, bring back's just some good old investigating.
I should have not started with you.
A lot of work for 15 million people to track all those details down. But yes, I hear your point.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't know what number that is.
I think it could be really based on what would cause the government, whether it's the state, depending on the location, what it would cause them to either deport the individual, incarcerate them, or because a lot of times that happens, house them. And so what is the cost associated that the government would become responsible for? And then maybe a portion of that or the total amount have something like along those lines, and then apply that and make that the fee or the fine.
So we got a question for Claudia here. It's a personal question. Did you marry an American citizen, or did you get here with the visa? What was your process?
I came in with a student visa, and then I ended up getting married later.
Okay. So, but you were, and that was your pathway to citizenship that way, or you had to do other things?
I did not get my citizenship from my husband. Okay, I did it on my own.
That's what we. So if anybody in the chat here wants to weigh in on that, John Gilman says 0 fines. We need open borders. Okay, yeah, that's great.
Well, John, do you lock your doors at night when you go to sleep?
I don't. Please don't.
Oh, not him. That John Gilman. Do you lock your doors?
Oh yeah.
You just leave your car. You leave your car running when you come home at night with the keys in it, so somebody can just come by.
Yeah, I think he was just trying to stir up trouble there. But if anybody could put. Here we go. He's trolling. We should have a trolling fee. If you troll on this show, you have to pay us each $5,000. That's what it costs. So, boy, this experiment's worked out well. So Claudia, your answer is whatever it costs the government to either put them in jail, deport them, or what the cost is going to be to do these actions, they can pay that instead and stay here. All right, Robby, and I'm going to get you last, Lucy, because you're getting some background noise there.
Yeah, I do think that if there's a fine involved, it should be in addition to deportation. Because again, if you've been here illegally and all this time, we need to reset the process. This is not a viable system that you can continue to be in this country without being either a citizen or here on some sort of legal status. And whatever any amount of fine is, I think the important thing is we need to reset back to the point that everyone's here. We know they're supposed to be here. They're a citizen or they're here on some sort of valid status. And we don't have people here who are here unlawfully. And if we do, then we are processing them as people who are violating the law. But I will point out, and I think this is important to note, and Claudia noted this earlier about benefits. One of the ironies about people who are here unlawfully is that most of them are working. And they're working under the table, or they're working with shared social security numbers, which again is fraudulent, which means they are actually paying taxes mostly for services which they can't really benefit from directly, because they can't get social security, they can't get Medicaid or Medicare, even though they're effectively paying into them. Now, certainly they get the benefit of the roads, and they get the benefit of the police force, and they get the benefit of schools they send their kids there. But a lot of the things they're paying for in these taxes, they actually can't benefit from. So I think it's one of the interesting ironies of this process is that we don't have E-Verify. We are not mandating that individuals who work here are actually certified to be real citizens or here on a valid status. And so that's why we have millions upon millions of people who are working in this economy and living here unlawfully.
Robby, to your point, you mentioned deportation and a fine. How can we make deportation seem just... I think when deportation comes up, I think it's such a sensitive thing, and that's where people get really upset and very emotional. How do you broach that subject and take the emotion out of it?
Well, I think it is emotional, and it's okay that it's emotional, because many of the people who have been here for decades and decades. They have families, they have multiple generations here. And I think if we make the statement that says, hey, if you were here in the United States and you're not here illegally, we got to reset the process. Now, we don't have to say you need to leave tomorrow. We need to have some sort of time frame and some sort of process to be put into place. We need to recognize that if you are here and you don't have legal status, that is creating a problem for everyone because our country is based on the idea that we are all here together trying to mostly follow the laws. And when we're not, we have a process in place to adjudicate that. And if millions of people aren't here doing that, we have to go through that system. It's like anybody else who breaks the rules. If you're breaking the rules, we have to have some sort of system to adjudicate that process. And it's not about it being out to hurt anybody. And we don't want things to happen like Claudia described, that her friend, her family member who came in was put into prison. We don't want poor treatment of individuals, but we do have to have a nation of laws. And our immigration system has become wholly unlawful throughout its entire process.
I think that this is like putting cooked spaghetti back in the box. I don't think you can do this. It's not. But Lucy, do you have an amount?
Well, yeah. I don't have an amount, and I'm going to tell you why.
Not one of you politicians answered the question, and you're all politicians.
No, I'm going to answer the question, but
okay.
There
In gold bars.
Don't like my answer. So first of all, as a libertarian, I believe in the free movement of people and capital across borders. However, there become perverse incentives. Claudia said if you can't here, you can't come here and get benefits, but there are benefits to living in America versus other countries. And so if we're going to be a nation that is rule of law, then people have got to know that the law says that if you get here and we discover you and you're illegal, then you're going to be deported. Now, I don't necessarily agree with that based on libertarian principles, but here's the real point that I want to get to. If you set a fine, when you set a fine for breaking the law, all you're putting people on notice is that if you're poor, you're not allowed to break the law, but if you're rich, you're allowed to break the law. Then the arbiter between whether or not you are illegal or legal is simply a matter of how much money do you have. And I think that's the whole problem with Congress today.
Well, they'll fit right in.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I'll say Lucy's right about one thing. Fines are not an elegant solution to be able to solve problems, especially when those fines are just fixed amounts. I think it's in Denmark or Sweden, the traffic fines are a percentage of your annual income. And the idea there is at least
that's why they're
some
riding bikes
in place to try to create an impact. But yeah, fines do have that effect.
And I think Denmark's 52% tax rate, so it's a lovely place. And they're supposed to be the happiest people in the world, probably because they don't have any money.
We have an effective tax rate higher than 52%.
We do have
when you add it all, well, it's theft, Lucy. The whole thing, their taxation is theft.
Robbery.
So, so they're robbery, slaughter. That's his new campaign slogan. So, wow, this hour is gone. It is gone from us. The discussion has been way better than our usual talking about moisturizers and whatnot, right, Tiffany? She's not even paying attention.
Night is young.
Yeah, the night is young. We can still do that. So, Robby, you have the option of staying around for the conspiracy. And Claudia, I don't think I even mentioned this to our new panelist, that we have a conspiracy theory. I'm the only one that wears a tinfoil hat anymore. Everybody else just assumes that they have one on. So it is our 183rd show.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of shows. I don't know when our 4 years coming up. Wow. So, sort of scary. So, Robby, you have the option of playing conspiracy theory. And Lucy, you'll be happy to know that I did meet a libertarian door knocking that said it was conspirafact. He said it's all true, all of it. And he lived in D.C. for a bunch of years. And he said, if I go to Congress, I'll be murdered. He said they're gonna do
really
something
would.
to you. Yeah, that's right. So, Robby, that's what we got to look forward to. Is
all right then.
We'll be murdered or whatever because of these. We're not going to do what they say, and they won't have things on us or whatever. But they'll make up things. They'll make up things and then make them stick, and then they'll be murdered. It was very. I really did want to go after talking to him. I was maybe I'll just go home now and to the chateau and be good. So, what's your answer? Are you going to stick around for conspiracy or?
Sure, I'll stick around.
All right, you don't have to have one. You can stick around and laugh at us. And Claudia, you don't get an option. You're on the panel. You signed up for this. This is what you get. So here is and I did not warn you about the intro because I can't wait for this to be a political commercial by the Democrats on me. So here you go. This is it. While it gives us a chance to get our tinfoil hats on. Hey, y'all, it's time for the conspiracy theory, so you better get your tinfoil hat out and let's see what's going on this week. Yeah, I lost one of my antennas. Aluminum foil is not what it used to be. All right. Oh, yeah, I can clearly find out what's going on getting this in here. So, all right. It's time for the conspiracy. Lucy, you're going first because we want to impress Claudia with their best conspiracy.
Really? Oh, shoot. was playing
All right,
alas.
we'll
But that's
come back
okay.
to you.
I always have a multitude of conspiracy facts. Okay.
You're good. You're on there now. We can hear you. Never mind. All right, Tiffany, any Bigfoot sightings, any moisture tips, any shaved ice things that you want to talk about?
I've got nothing. I think all that red dye 7 and yellow
blue 5,
yeah.
5.
Yeah, I think it's
yellow number 5.
Yellow number 5. Yeah, it's like when they're around. So Claudia, I mean, you're not prepared. Do you have any conspiracy face? How about you, Robby?
Do I have any conspiracy theories?
Yeah.
Oh, I have one that I think is fun. I think a good conspiracy theory contains the elements where it shows how there is, what was the phrase Lucy used earlier, perverse incentive. So my conspiracy theory is that the antivirus software companies write a lot of the computer viruses.
Yeah, I've been thinking that for years. That McAfee guy, I know he was writing stuff up. He had a bunch of hamsters on hamster wheels going back there making viruses as fast as they could. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So
that's funny.
Lucy,
I think it's demonstrable. I think it's demonstrably proven that Bill Gates did exactly that, and now he's trying to feed us bugs. Right? You guys heard the latest about the mealworm milk? That milk is being made out of mealworm larvae.
Yeah,
I am not even exaggerating this. Yeah, and
if you don't tell me what it is, I'll probably do it.
So let's just go into so let's go to the conspiracy fact, which is about Bill Gates once again. Of course, it's about Bill Gates because that's him. So Bill Gates is still buying up farmland, and he is still working on legislation to try and force people to have fewer choices, relative to like meat and eggs and raw milk, right? All those things that are taken away from people. Well, people still need calories. So where are they going to search for their calories? They're going to look for Bill Gates to provide them. And of course, Bill Gates is only interested in providing calories that are associated with cheap production for a slave class. And I think conspiracy theory wise that there is a real difference in the mindset between, somebody like me living on a couple of acres, trying to produce my own food and, provide the best nutrition for my family versus somebody like Bill Gates, who doesn't believe that people deserve that level of nutrition. It is certainly problematic for the slave class to be well nourished and able to think clearly. So the conspiracy theory is if we can get everybody eating bugs and drinking mealworm milk, they will have too much brain fog and not enough nutrient density in order to mount a counterattack.
They'll be like koala bears.
Maybe we can all get put into batteries in the Matrix, and they could use us to power everything.
Who says we're not already in the
Maybe
Matrix?
we're already there.
I think we already are. I really believe.
Lucy, you know what I love about that? Because when you say slave class, I mean, there are so many people who are in it, they don't even know.
They have no clue. I was literally on the way to Target tonight explaining to my daughter about Social Security and how the government actually takes 15% from everybody that works, but they don't realize that 7.5% of that is hidden by taking that money from the employer. So your employer could afford to pay you $21.50 an hour, but you're only getting $20 because that extra $1.50 represents the other 7.5% of the FICA.
Yeah, but your employer wouldn't pay you that amount because they know you work for less, so the employer would keep it.
No, I disagree because in a system where there is less theft and less intervention. See, part of the theft and fraud of the government and the taxation, which of course we know taxation is theft.
Taxation is robbery, not theft. You got to get it right, you see. Robbery
I will agree because it's at the point of a gun. If you don't pay your taxes, eventually somebody with a gun.
It's got to be robbery.
Well, we've never had anybody argue with Lucy about taxation.
No, it's important to know the difference between theft and robbery, right? This is a fundamental question of
right, and it's not just a robbery; it's armed robbery, and it's coercion, and it's blackmail. Yes. There's so many different levels of it. But the main problem here that I was expressing to my daughter is, we have 15% of your earning power, which is directly stolen by the government, but most people only recognize half of that. So when people go in to negotiate with their employer, which of course ends up in the cost of goods sold and the eventual price that we all pay for products, that 30 to 40% of government theft means that everything we pay for is higher. So is $20 really a living wage, or is it only a living wage because 30% of it is going away because the government's going to steal it?
Depends on where you are in the country. Are we still in the conspiracy theory section?
Yeah, absolutely. And we know Democrat-run cities are more expensive than Republican-run cities. That's a fact.
Yeah, it's all right. That was like 3 conspiracy facts in one? Is that what we did?
I got more, but it's 10:04.
That was
I know,
exciting.
and Claudia will be prepared next week, won't she? She seems like a prepared person, doesn't she, Tiffany?
I'll bring something up.
Yeah,
Yes,
We'll be
good.
prepared.
she's and she's done quite well. I would like to see our audience, if they approve of Claudia's performance this evening. It's sometimes we just sort of catapulted her into this thing. And if anybody's been on our show and they see the show prep, it's usually 8:58, and we can just make sure everybody's back there. And okay, let's roll it.
Early to the Lions.
It's just right out there in it. So we'll have Claudia back next week because Brad's out cavorting all over the baseball fields and everything. He's probably one of them streakers out there on one of the baseball things. We'll probably see him out there, or that at a
Oh
fish
yeah, they
concert.
call him the Streak.
Yeah, look at that. Ethel done got moved.
Somebody said that Brad's transitioning. That was pretty funny. I don't know if you said that, but
So my conspiracy is about pumpkin spice. That comes around. We're getting close to the October season, and pumpkin spice is coming out, and that is a Russian conspiracy that they put in our system here to make us like Halloween more, and it's a Russian conspiracy, the pumpkin spice. So anytime you're having pumpkin spice, the Russians are making some money off of it or something. I don't know. It's so that the pumpkin spice, the great Russian pumpkin spice conspiracy theory.
I can tell you why that is, John. It's because Russians drink so much chai, and pumpkin spice is the gateway to chai.
Oh, I just, man. Okay, that makes a lot.
It all
more
makes sense now. It all fits
yeah, I like how we tie this show all together into a bow. And
speaking of communists, did you catch in the news? I do need a nap. That Kim Jong-un, whatever, he's training his daughter to take over the country because he has health ailments.
Oh man,
Oh,
it's
wow.
too much. Well, it's like we'll see how that works out, because sometimes your kids don't do what you do. So
yeah. But isn't that nice that he trusts his daughter? Oh my gosh. This is such a heart moment.
it's take your daughter to work day.
Oh, take your communist daughter to work.
Yeah.
That is so nice.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
she's probably got some black suit she's gonna wear. It's like,
maybe she's gonna be like Dr. Evil. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
All
I think
right,
it's
people.
grooming his daughter. That part of it I thought was fantastic.
Well, he's probably a decent guy. You sit down and talk to him. I mean,
I
as long
wonder
as
if
he's-
his daughter was educated in the same elite Switzerland schools that he went to, so that he knows all the world leaders growing up and they can all conspire against us.
and Lucy chips in another conspiracy from the balcony.
Yeah, she played soccer too, I'm sure.
So, all right, new people on the show, Robby. We go off the air, but stay on because we do a little talking at the end. Sometimes it's fun. so anyway, we're going to wind this thing up. Send it to Mother. Thanks for the viewers. We've had tremendous chat tonight on this thing. So you've brought that in, Robby. So that's good. And Claudia, you've brought some audience too, I think, possibly. I want to thank Wayne Harmon, who's number 39, or he wants to be number 1 on the countdown, for introducing Claudia to the show. She's probably going to call him up after this and cuss him out. But other than
he'll
that,
be waiting soon.
yeah. So we will see you next week. I actually got an ending. The ending's actually got you on there, Claudia. I think that I've really rolled out the red carpet for you here. Usually it doesn't have the right names on it or anything. So we have all the players. So we will see you again next week, 9 p.m. Thanks a lot, Robby. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Tanya Hudson is the lieutenant
Thanks, guys.
candidate.
Tanya
She's
Hudson,
next
that's
year.
right.
She's on next week's desk.
Libertarian Lieutenant Governor. Say that 10 times fast. It's going to be on next week. We're having a good old time. Thanks for watching, everybody. We will catch you next week, 9 o'clock Tuesday live.